So yes, it's totally possible to choose your own playstyle in the upcoming Ghost of Tsushima, as there was always the question of, are you forced to play either as a samurai or as a ghost, or are the lines more blurred and can you switch between these two styles at any given point during combat? And well, thanks to a series of interviews in the past few hours, we finally know the answer to that, which is yes, you can switch things up and you're not going to be restricted in any of these two styles, which is honestly amazing news. Of course, we also have some more details that explain some other systems that were shown in the recent gameplay reveal, like we know more about what types of weapons you can expect in the game. We also finally know more about how you acquire armor in Ghost of Tsushima, and also what various systems that we've seen in the gameplay reveal even mean, like for example those energy yellow orbs that we saw in the UI corner screen. So definitely a ton of stuff to go over, so let's jump right in it, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would be super awesome. Let's begin with the interview that one of the French YouTubers called Julien, I'm going to post his link in the description box down below, has held with the creative director on Ghost of Tsushima, as this one also answers quite a ton of questions. Of course, the video is in French, but we do have a translation over here, and as many of you guys have pointed out in the past, it seems that yes, both Zelda as well as Shadow of the Colossus were a big inspiration behind Ghost of Tsushima, though I am recognizing a ton of other systems from other open world games in there as well. Let's go over that series of yellow orbs that we saw in the bottom left corner of the screen, and apparently that's gonna be called Jin's Resolve Meter, as in it kinda acts like an energy meter, though all of these orbs are individual gauges that can both be filled up by various interactions as well as spent on various abilities. One of the ways to actually fill these up is by simply hitting the enemies and the bar will start loading, though in the gameplay reveal we saw it being done with other ways as well, like for example even killing enemies, and even better, if the enemy was counter-attacked or parried, it filled the bar even more. But there's other things that it can do in order to spend these, like for example you can also heal your character. There are healing abilities that will consume these orbs and you can do so in battle, but according to the interview there are many other things related to this gauge, and there's other things but they don't want to go into too much detail on that. I think it's safe to assume that special attacks and even ultimate attacks are also going to be on the list. We did see Jin doing a very powerful attack that did consume one resolve meter bar, so I think that's going to be the case as well. And we also saw that L1 plus R1 combination, which is very likely going to be an ultimate ability, way stronger than anything else Jin has in his arsenal. Anyway, one of the big questions that I had in one of the previous videos, especially following all of that abundance of creatures that we saw in the gameplay reveal, as well as Jin apparently picking a ton of resources from various places, was, is there actually a hunting system in this game as well? Like, can you go in and hunt creatures for their, well, supposedly pelts, so you can craft some, for example, armor sets? Well, unfortunately that isn't going to be the case, and even though hunting animals is a possibility in Ghost of Tsushima, there's nothing to gain by doing it, according to the interview right here. And animals in Ghost of Tsushima are mainly there to make you feel more immersed, and also in various situations to guide you through your next destination or to your next point of interest or secret area, which now that I'm thinking more about it, it does make a ton of sense. I mean, Jin is a character that is very in tune with the nature, and it wouldn't make sense for him to go wild and like just exterminate a bunch of animals just so he can make a pair of boots, for example. So I just don't see a character like Jin doing that, though again, from a gameplay point of view, I would really enjoy having a hunting system in a game like this. Nonetheless, we also talked about the standoff, and as I correctly predicted in the previous video, you can activate this at any given time, even when actually infiltrating. And again, as we saw in the gameplay reveal, you can do this by pressing arrow up on your controller, and again, this is going to be possible as long as you don't already engage with the enemy, or at the very least that's what I'm seeing from the reveal. But standoff can be possible both in ghost form as well as in just playing like a samurai. Anyway, another big feature was the introduction of stances. We saw two of these being utilized in the recent gameplay reveal, with Jin using both the water and the stone stance to better adapt and deal more damage against various types of enemies. And we of course concluded back then that there's also a third one that was never utilized or shown in the gameplay reveal, and also a room for a fourth one that was never binded. it. And apparently that is going to be the case. It seems that there's going to be way more than just the 2 stances showcased and used in the gameplay reveal, though no actual number was given. I think that the 4 that we initially speculated is probably going to be the correct one. The translation over here does indicate much more stances, though I'm pretty sure that this is a problem with the translation or maybe with the interpretation, and I think the maximum is still going to be 4. It doesn't really make any sense to make more than these. Like, what's the reason to have more than these and have to constantly rebind them to utilize them in combat? Let's also move over to weapons and armors, as I'm sure that many of you are interested about this subject. So the game will feature and will mostly remain focused on that katana playthrough throughout the entire game, but there's going to be many other weapons and gadgets in the game as well, according to the interview, though the interview never specifies what it means by other weapons, because it could very well just be secondary weapons that we already saw in the video, like with the shurikens, with the kunais, with the grappling hook, and even with the dagger, that were also weapons but kinda secondary and nothing like too big. So my question about the spear, the introduction and the possibility of using weapons like spears that were also utilized by samurai seems to kind of be dead in the water. I don't think that's going to be the case, and katanas and the wakizashi is going to be like the main type of weapon that you can use in this game, but that's probably going to be it. It remains to be seen what other gadgets and side weapons that we might have, but only expect the big ones to be fully rendered, like the katanas on the back and on the side, and the bow are going to be fully displayed on all of the outfits, but the smaller ones aren't going to be on all of the outfits since it would represent too much work. Kind of a bummer. I was expecting a little bit more attention to detail than this, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, shurikens are going to be hidden anyway, or well, the kunai are going to be hidden anyway, so no reason to have them on display, and the same goes with the bombs that can just be held in a satchel. Now, another thing that we correctly predicted in the previous video was the fact that heavy armor does indeed make you less agile, as it was confirmed from the interview, but there's also another effect from it, and that is the fact that it's also going to make infiltration much harder when you're using heavy armor. So this is actually pretty awesome. It doesn't really make any sense to be able to move in heavy armor and not have it click and clack all over and alert the enemies, so I'm glad that Sucker Punch has went with the more realistic approach, but this can also imply to other things. First of all, it can imply the fact that enemy detection is also based on, for example, sound, not just their sight, so the amount of sound your character produces can also have an effect on how easily you are going to be detectable, but having less agility with the heavy armor could also mean that it's going to be harder to climb high surfaces or even using your grappling hook, though that remains to be seen. Moving on, the interview does confirm that there are several ways to actually obtain outfits in Ghost of Tsushima. One of them is through the main story, another one by doing quests, another one by buying them from the villages, which also confirms that there is an economic system in the Tsushima island, and also by simply exploring the world, something like how it was in The Witcher 3, where you kind of went in, discovered the schematics of several outfits, and then you were able to actually craft them, though in this case it might be something different, like just directly find those armor sets in chests or just hidden in certain locations. We do know that exploration is going to be a huge part of the game, so this is going to add another layer to it and another reason to go out there and explore if it means you're going to get some really awesome gear. Side missions is also going to be a huge part of the game, and according to the interview, you can build more or less strong relationships with different characters to learn more about their stories, but it is up to you if you want to build these, or you can completely skip on them if that is what you want to. So this is quite interesting. It might very well imply that there's going to be a level of quality similar to the one in The Witcher 3 that had some really amazing side stories, and I kinda do feel that this game would be the perfect fit for that, though again, it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case. Now, on a final note, we finally know about what that karma system, or what we thought was the karma system, even means, with that legend or way of the ghost meter in the map menu, and also how you can choose between the way of the ghost and playing as a samurai. And we have an interview review from IGN from yesterday that kinda clarifies a lot of this. So apparently there isn't going to be a karma or morality system like how it was in their previous infamous Second Son, where you could play either as an evil character or as a good one and have that reflected in your abilities as well, but rather they wanted to tell a human story of someone who is this way and has to evolve into something else versus transform completely into something else. This also clarifies that the way of the ghost and the way of the samurai aren't distinct modes that you're going to be forced to play with or spec into, and the naming merely represents different facets of the same character and fighter, emblematic of the evolution according to the interview right here. At no point in the game are you going to be forced to play either as a samurai or the ghost, though there are going to be situations where one of these is going to be more potent than the other. Like, you're definitely going to want to sneak a few times since there are enemies in the game that can overwhelm you, and like large bases with a ton of enemies in them. But even like in the middle of the combat, you can just, you know, turn around and like use your katana and play as a samurai, even though like a fraction of a second before that you were going stealthy and kind of playing like a ninja. So you can use all of these with the same arsenal at any given time without having to go through any transition or respecking of your character, since you're always going to have access to these and evolve these abilities and techniques as you go through the game. Now, of course, if you want to see more of this, don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification bell. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to thumbs up on it, and I will see you guys in the next one.